Hi, I'm Frank Gucciardo with orderplans.com, a division of PKAD Architecture and Design. And in this episode, we're back here in the woodworking shop with Corey Tyne, and we're here at CT Woodworking. Right. That's right. And so, just real quick, we're grateful that we can come into the shop, and Corey's really a young professional, great at what he does. And why don't you tell us a little bit about this piece here?
So this piece is I completed a few months ago for the Long Island Woodworkers show, so I got second place in it, but it's called the whiskey cabinet. So this is quilted maple, and this is a wood called anagray from Africa. So it's got a, you put your glasses, your whiskey in there, hang it on the wall. It's got a cleat on the back here.
Right.
So you can hang it on the wall, and this was all done by hand, all these joints.
All these joints over here like this, and yeah, maybe they can zoom in here a little bit. So real pretty wood. And you said you took second on this.
Second place on that.
And there was a lot of guys after that prize.
A lot of guys, about over 20 items in that one category.
You were probably the youngest guy, right?
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah, great. And then you were telling me that you run some classes for this too.
I do run classes. Next year, this will be a class you can take out of I'm almost surpassing 40 different classes that I offer.
Yeah, you do some great stuff here. What's the logo again?
CT Woodwork. Well, I have my old sweatshirt on, but yeah, CT Woodwork, and my slogan is "Where ideas become heirlooms." Where ideas become heirlooms. So thanks, Corey. We appreciate using your space. Thanks so much. All right. So again, we want to give a big shout out and a thank you to Corey for letting us come in and host here. And in this episode, I've got two great subject matter experts. Anthony Andrews of DiLandro Andrews Engineering. Yep. And Ray Renault Architecture. Yep. And you're located in Southampton, and Ray, you're
Shelter Island.
You're in Shelter Island.
Yeah.
So most of your work, guys, is East End stuff, or for the most part?
South Fork, Shelter Island.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah, we're all over the island, but a couple different states now. Florida, we have some work. Connecticut, Massachusetts.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and most of our work is from Southampton to Montauk Point and Shelter Island.
Gotcha. And you focus primarily residential?
Yes.
And we're
heavy residential, but we do a lot of commercial.
A little commercial stuff too.
And
so
municipal.
Yeah. So well, thank you both for being on.
Yeah.
And the topic comes up when we're a lot of folks watching this. They come from all aspects of real estate. And when folks are watching and they're dealing with architects, engineers, they don't know really how the two fit together. So I just thought it was great that we've got nice relationships between all the offices, and you guys do some great work, and you do some great work, and I thought we just kind of chat it up and just talk about and you guys go back a bit.
We do.
10 years.
I think about 10 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, total.
Yeah.
So we've been doing some crazy projects together.
Yeah.
And usually how it comes together is Ray will seek out our services. It's very rare that we'll get brought onto a job before an architect is on board. It happens, but usually our input is you need to get an architect involved before we get involved, because we don't know exactly what you want.
Right.
Basically, if we're going to do something, it's going to be symmetrical, and you don't want that. So
right.
So we get to have all the fun.
Right.
We pass it off to Anthony and his team, and they get to figure out the nuts and bolts of how things go together.
Right.
Make sure that it's going to.
So if you were going to talk, if you were going to talk to a homeowner or to somebody that maybe isn't in, and this episode would be a little more in the weeds, a little bit technical talk. Yeah. But if you were going to talk to somebody at 30,000 foot up, down, and say, so what's the role of the architect, and then when would you bring in DiLandro Andrews in to assist?
So
where's the benchmarks?
Yeah, the architect starts the initial conversation with the owner and maybe the owner's team, surveyors and things like that, and we basically take a client's program. What is it that they want to achieve out of their project, and we incorporate it into a design. And once that design is fulfilled from the perspective of a schematic design, they're happy with the overall concept, they like the ideas that we're portraying, we would engage, maybe structural engineering, maybe some civil engineering, maybe mechanical engineering, depending on the complexity of, architects are trained in general in all of those areas, but we're not very specific.
Right.
And we have kind of an overseeing of the entire project.
Right.
But we're not experts in structural. we're not experts in civil, and we're not experts in mechanical.
Right.
So that's when we bring in consulting engineers.
So you'd almost, if we can equate this to, let's say, the medical industry, you'd be like a general practitioner.
Correct.
And you would be like the
Orthopedics.
the orthopedist or the neurologist or the specialty
Yes.
in the system,
Different.
right? Right. And you have in your practice as an engineer, you will look at structure,
Yes.
right? Bones, right? The mechanicals, the nervous system, the lungs, and then the plumbing, right? So that's kind of the right. So you come back to consult with the general practitioner,
Yep.
and then when it's a little bit over the nose,
Yep.
right? Then it comes over to you to then drill it home.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so a lot of the projects that we're dealing with, we create the kind of boundaries for what it is that we're trying to create, and you know, the goals of what we're trying to create, and then the structural engineers, usually structural civil, will kind of work within those boundaries. And there's a lot of coordination that goes on between both of us. You know, we may say the floor system has to be a maximum of 14 inches or 16 inches, and you know, the beam sizes would have to fit within that. So there's a lot of back and forth.
Right. Nothing
during
just
that
happens,
process.
right?
No, nothing just
Right.
happens.
Just is a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
We never say just. If you say just, it means time and money is attached to it. If you have to use just, it means time and money.
That's
right.
right. Yeah.
Yes. Just is a 4-letter word.
There are many different factors that go into why they are presenting something a certain way. So 14-inch cavity, for instance, maybe that changes your exterior profiles
Yes.
and how tall your building is.
Right.
If you're on a tight site, you don't want to go through a variance or
Right.
any of that
Yep.
to get that building involved
Right.
or built. Rather.
Or sprinklered or whatever. Right. Yeah.
Well, sprinkler usually comes with
Heights.
3 stories,
Right.
Or use of building.
Right.
So commercial, more often than not, you'll have it 3 stories. You have to have the attic done. But for us, you know, we get brought on after, like Ray said, the concept.
Right.
Yeah.
We have our own basic idea of what hiccups will occur. The biggest one, especially on the East End, is the septic system.
Sure.
So there's a lot of different requirements.
Oh boy.
Depths of groundwater.
Yeah.
How many bedrooms you actually have.
Yep.
Who's determining the use of that building.
Yep.
So more often than not, we have to kind of throw a little wrench in the plan and say, maybe we have to move 1 or 2 things, or
Sure.
you may want to rethink the amount of bedrooms you have because you can't fit a 9-bedroom system on your
Right.
property. Your neighbor is on well water. You're going to have to bring him to Suffolk County Water Authority and bring him this utility along with yourself,
Yep.
so that you can put it in.
Right.
So
Right.
it happens.
And a lot of the clients that we have, you know, are pushing the envelope.
Oh yeah.
We're always pushing the envelope for maximizing not only the footprint or, you know, boundaries, but also maybe vertical floodplains. One of the projects that we were working on, we actually designed a submarine basement that has submarine doors, so that the mechanical systems can be below the floodplain. And you know,
I think I approached that one and said, I don't know how we're going to do this because
we were scratching our heads and we
Right.
said we have no mechanical space
from a code
from a
related-
code perspective.
Yeah.
So you know, that was one of the
Yeah. How would you vent that?
the projects
be
that
sealed.
Yeah.
you know, we work together on, and that involves a lot of things. You know, structural capacity, flood zone, FEMA,
Sure.
flood zones, all kinds of things.
Right.
Coming together in one, you know,
Right, right.
fell swoop in,
Right.
just so we can get the mechanicals out of the living space and maximize that
Right.
for the client.
So when you say schematics, you're not at the phase yet when you're going to go to the building department, right?
No.
Right.
No.
So remember,
Sure.
So if we're going to talk to the homeowner, we're going to talk to the folks that maybe have their, you know, trying to get their finger underneath what we do.
Yeah.
Maybe take somebody through like a typical process. Like
Sure.
what happens when they say, you know, Ray, we like to hire you as our architect. What
So-
are the things you do?
The first stage that we usually go through is a pre-design phase, and that is essentially us creating, working with the client to create the program, looking at surveys and site plans and figuring out all of our zoning calculations, making sure that we know what the boundaries are, you know, from a zoning perspective or from a township perspective. So once we know those things, we go into a schematic design phase, and that is generally, you know, creating the first concepts of the building. Then we get into floor plans, and we get into site plans, and then we start in with the exterior massing of the house.
Right.
And we'll get into maybe some three-dimensional renderings of what the
Right.
house will look like. The clients get excited about the project. That's the most fun we're going to have in the project.
Right.
It's
It's
kind of creating it.
bringing this out.
Building it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they have this idea in their head.
They do.
Right. And our job is to like pull it out of them and let them see it.
Yeah.
Right.
So we finish the schematic design phase. Everyone's excited about the project. And then we go into what's more of a design development phase, where we bring in the engineer. We bring in other consultants that we may need as part of the scope of work for the project. And, as we build that set of documents, we may start our approval process, through Suffolk County or DEC or wetlands approvals.
So you don't have all the everything figured out just yet, but you're getting closer.
We're getting closer.
Right.
And as we move through those approval process, we may learn things about the project that we can or cannot do. And that's part of that design development process.
Right. So the authority having jurisdiction, right,
Yes.
the AHJ,
Sure.
they're going to have their 2 cents.
Yes.
And then now that comes back and
Yep.
so nothing,
tweaking.
some tweaking, right. But so nothing just happens, right?
Right.
Nothing just
Nothing happens.
Nothing
Sure.
just happens.
No. Once we finish that phase, we would,
So I'm sorry, Ray. So at design development, when you're coming out of schematics, that's when it would jump over to you.
that's what we engage.
Right.
Structural,
Design
civil, depending on the project.
Right.
Mechanical.
Right. So then you're going to take
That's where our schematic.
your schematics.
Starts.
Right. Your schematics phase starts where you're into
into the next
phase.
Yes.
So then you take a project and you're going to have existing conditions. It's modeled. You're looking at
It could be. It's either
could
a
be.
brand new build
Yeah.
or it's an existing condition.
right. It's a Renault or something like that. But now you're going to look at this and then do what? You're going to
We have to first point of order is what service are we providing?
Right.
If it just comes to us, hey, we need structural, more often than not, we'll notice one or two things. The mechanical requirements are going to be pretty tight. Do you have anybody designing the system for you? Looks like you're in this location. You're going to need a HERS rating. We do those. Would you be interested in us in doing this as well?
right.
The HERS
And
rating-
what's the HERS rating? Because that's come up a lot.
It's a home energy rating, so you have to meet a certain threshold, and that's based on the entire volume.
And is this an optional thing that a homeowner would?
There are towns that don't require it, and villages and municipalities that don't require it, but more often than not.
More often than not. So the town is stating we need a HERS rater.
Yeah.
And then you stay with the project.
For the HERS rating, it's a
Yeah.
design, which is essentially the homeowner can then use it and go to a contractor and purchase the system
Right.
based on our requirements. At that point, we can do the testing. They can send it to a third party to do the testing once the system's installed to say, this is what we had designed,
Right.
and this is what it now meets.
Right.
And if it doesn't exceed that, we have to figure out where the deficiencies are, and if it does meet it, then it goes right to the town. They can get their CO. They're not waiting.
So it's part of the process.
Yes.
It's part of the process. So it's testing, ongoing, part of the process.
Part of the process.
Right. So now, so Ray would hand over to you and say, we want this clear span of 30 feet and,
If he comes to me for strictly
Right.
30.
structural,
Come on, Frank.
50. Yeah.
We're always pushing the limit.
right,
And that's-
right,
We certainly enjoy that part
Yeah.
of it.
Right.
And luckily enough, Ray has let us get a little crazy in our designs. And
Right.
They've worked out very well.
Right.
Yeah.
In the one he's referring to right now.
Yeah.
It was a house that had a 50-foot length of glass, 2 stories tall. I'm pretty sure it was a gable roof that was landing on it, but not
yeah.
vaulted.
Yeah.
So you had 50 feet of glass, 2 stories tall, like a big fishbowl.
Yes.
I don't know what portions of the building it was connecting, and more often than not, you'll see in our drawings we don't have like room labels in, which
Right.
just muddies up the waters. We like it clean.
So you draw this up, right? You pull this out of the homeowner.
Yeah.
This is what we want, Ray. We have the budget for it.
Sure.
Okay, great. Let's see if you like it. You like it, yes. And then those drawings then go to you.
Yep.
And then you do your math.
What we'll do is we'll do an initial assessment of it. We do a structural questionnaire, just like we do a mechanical questionnaire. I forgot to discuss the side of things and the civil side of things, but we'll
Yeah.
table that for a second. We do a questionnaire and we say a lot of things are, where do you want flush shower heads?
Right.
different finishes are you going to use on the floor, so we have an idea of what our dead loads are. We have a pretty standard dead load use that we go with every project. But if we ask the question on the questionnaire, it gets filled in, and we're going to use a mud set with a 3-inch stone.
Right.
We know we have to bump up our.
Or if they said they want to bring in a 3-ton
Right,
sculpture on the second story, yeah.
That always happens
That
after.
after, yeah. So that's happening
Right.
currently on a project.
Right.
But we have to account for those things, and
Sure.
that could either be a permanent solution, or it can be a temporary solution.
Sure.
Right.
It's always a little bit nicer when it's permanent, so we can
Yeah.
put it into the design set, but nothing ever
Right.
is permanent. So
So you worked out this 50-foot run of
Yep.
glass, 2 stories tall. You
Parallel
figured this out.
balcony.
was there a
Yeah.
gap between the glass? There was a gap between the glass,
It
'cause
was.
otherwise we
We had some
used
vertical
mullions.
columns.
Yeah.
2-story columns.
So
Right.
we had to cantilever a single piece, basically T-cantilever a piece off of the column flanking the front doors.
Yep.
And that's not generally a complex thing to do. The complexity lies in the thermal break. So we couldn't have that piece of steel get any sort of thermal bridge through the house. So all the exterior elements, wind, snow, whatever's
Right.
freezing that steel to then come into the house.
Into the house and carry.
There's some material that we use, and I can't remember the name, Fibrex.
Yeah.
It's a pad, essentially. I'm not exactly sure what it's
Right.
made of, but we detailed and designed a connection based on how thick that plate was.
Right.
So it has a certain compressive strength, so the moment forces that are required on a stub cantilever member, like the canopy was,
Yes.
we're designing for.
Right.
We were able to source the material.
Right.
I think Tebbins did the job, maybe.
Yeah.
They sourced it, they
Yeah.
installed it, and we got there to take a
So,
look at
so,
it.
so the homeowner hears all this and like their eyes glaze back.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, they just want to be comfortable in their home.
Yes.
Right.
They don't want to sit next to the window. But man, it's cold. Why have a draft on here? Or why is there water on the ground? And what is this? And how come it's dripping over here? Nobody, they don't, like the materials and all of this intelligence that's just pouring out of you, the homeowner just wants to be comfortable.
Yeah,
And that's our job.
And excited about this.
And excited.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's why I said it.
Yeah.
The most exciting part is that schematic design.
Right.
And then the start of construction.
Right.
So in between, we have that design development phase.
Right.
Once we're kind of comfortable with all of that,
Right.
we go into a construction document phase, and that's really the exterior shell, that we basically create, and we're doing details for windows and wall sections and
Shop drawing review.
trim details, all
Right.
kinds of things to
Right.
tell the builders and tell the team how to put this together.
Right.
And that includes, all the structural components and all the detailing that we've worked out with our engineer.
Right.
Once we get that, the whole package, including all the other subsequent approvals, health department, DEC, whatever else we might need, that whole package goes to a municipality
Right.
for an approval to get a building permit.
Right. And
That's
so.
how you get from point A to point B.
Right. So this is like you have a space where you're kind of hidden from the homeowner interface in the sense where there's nothing like sexy about this, that they see finishes and tile and what knobs am I going to touch or appliances,
Yes.
but
More often than not,
yeah, right.
Ray is the liaison.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But if you're not if you don't do your job, they're going to know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they're going to know.
Absolutely.
Not know why, but right. But your job is to keep everyone comfortable, the house standing up, and everyone comfortable in the winter and cool in the summer and warm right on the MEP side.
Absolutely. The MEP side, that's probably the first thing that you'll notice in the house. There are certainly some people that are more sensitive to floor flutter as well and the actual performance of the floor,
Right.
which, there's certainly
Sure.
plenty of sources that you can use for what your deflection ratings can be
Right.
on joists, but more
Right.
often than not, they're way higher than what
Right.
some people would perceive
And-
and be allowing of.
And then so these are all complicated matters on luxury type
Yes.
deployment. But then, so we're big, we're talking this, right? But when we go into the sort of the bell curve, 4,000 square foot or less home, the principles don't change, just the complexity of it changes.
Yeah.
Right.
So you still need structure, you still need an architect to kind of start from point A to point B. You're still going to need most of the times a HERS rating, septic system.
Right, especially if you're in Suffolk County.
Drainage.
Yeah,
You need to
drainage.
show that you're
Yeah.
Sometimes you need retaining walls depending on what the site is.
Yep.
You know, so that's another aspect
Right.
that Anthony's team can provide.
Right.
You know, so it really depends on the project.
Right.
You know, and,
Right.
and the complexity of it.
Yeah, right.
And if we're doing a renovation project, that's where we'll get you involved.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we can basically have you do a scan, an existing condition scan, you know, and collect all that information.
Right out in the beginning in discovery.
Right out in the beginning.
Yeah. Right.
The pre-design phase.
Right.
You know, so we can gather all that information, and then you're, you know, a great resource for that, because what you're providing is something we can't do, you know, with cameras, and we don't have that equipment
Right.
to do that.
Right.
And, you know,
The best we have is
It's the
a
best.
video on our iPhone.
Right. Right.
yeah.
So
Right.
plenty of times I've gone to a site and had to take existing conditions.
Sure.
And I'll walk through it. I'll document the best I can. But I'm always getting back, and I'm like, I wish I had like a 3D model,
Yeah.
or if I could get into
That
this
extra
video
photograph,
and then move it
you know?
around.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Right.
You didn't have,
Right.
you didn't take that
Yeah.
one picture.
Right. Right.
You know?
And I think I came across you guys before you were actually introduced to Paul, and it was one project in particular that I was like, I really wish I took more photos. I took
Right.
a video of this, and Dave Walker and Bruce Nagel and partners, they had sent me a drawing, or rather a file from you guys. And I was like, what is PKAD? And it was just the points on the floor, and I was
Yeah.
able to walk through the building.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was able to pan
amazing.
around.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny when, you know, as we introduced this technology into our practice back in 2016, now we know 7 years, you know, and I look at a still shot on my screen, I grab my mouse and I'm trying to spin it, and it doesn't move, and I said, oh, that's right, this is a still shot, right? But when we move it in 3D, then you can see and whatnot.
Sure.
So, and the thing that you kind of touched on it, and this has kind of been a sort of a hot topic, is this level of detail
Yes.
that's, you know, sort of required to go from existing conditions to a full set of construction drawings.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe talk about, what does that mean to you, level of detail?
You know, again, it almost depends on the project, right, and what we're doing. So we have projects where we're, you know, maybe doing a small renovation, and the clients just want to get a building permit. And then we do complete houses from the ground up, very high end, where we're basically drawing all of the interiors of every single space. And we're designing built-ins and kitchens and fireplaces, you know, molding profiles, all
Right.
of that information. Staircases is a big one. So we bring all of that information and detail and build it all in
Right.
a 3D model in
Right.
our software.
Right.
So when we get into that level of detail, we're doing sometimes full-scale actual details of the molding profiles, so they can bring it to a woodworking shop and
Right.
create those things.
Right.
So we get down to, you know, full-scale details. We print out full-scale templates
Right.
of sometimes roof rafters for
Right.
framers,
Right.
but there's a special curve to it or something.
Sure.
So, you know, we can do it very minimally, or we could do it, you
Right.
know, really, really detailed.
Sure, and like in your practice, it's been great, because like the other day we were doing a review, a walkthrough, and say,
Yes.
okay, Ray, you know, what do you need
Yep.
to accomplish this? And there were some beautiful fluted chimneys that had extrusions and elevations, and it's all fluted, and you know, we'll model that for you, but do you need us to model it? And it's no, Frank, a straight chimney to the, you know, a rectangle to the sky is enough, because my focus is on the inside.
Right.
And you know, and then we're giving you some new hybrid stuff that I know we delivered today.
Yeah,
that
which is
I,
amazing.
Yeah, and you've had some of the hybrid reflected ceiling plans on the gun range. So, but that level of detail, then I would just assume, right? I'll turn it over to you, and then if you need it, you'll start to add onto it.
Exactly.
But the heavy lift
Yes.
is, and I
Much
guess,
appreciated. Yep.
and on every job, I guess it's going to be a little bit different in everyone's
depends
practice.
on the scope of work, depends on the project.
Right.
You know, we may design, you know, a kitchen and have 12 sheets of drawings for one kitchen. We could design a kitchen and have one page. So
Right.
it all depends on what our expectation
Right,
is.
and what does the homeowner need, and the budget for that, and
Yeah.
and does it make sense, and
Yep.
right, so
so it's fun.
yeah. So then,
It keeps it interesting.
and then so then you mentioned the software that you use.
Sure.
So maybe talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, so for the past 20 years, we've been using building information modeling,
Right, BIM.
Autodesk Revit. And Revit came out 23 years ago. Before that, we were using Architectural Desktop, which is a version of AutoCAD.
CAD, right.
So CAD is a very commonplace kind of name.
Sure.
Everybody kind of heard the name CAD.
CAD.
Not everybody's heard the name BIM.
Right.
Right? Building information modeling is essentially, creating the structure and building everything in a 3D world inside the computer. And what you're doing is you're extracting the data from that model versus, creating, glorified sheets of drafting
Right.
or lines.
Right.
So in a BIM world, everything is connected.
You're essentially building the building.
You're building the building.
And you know that it works.
You can see it work. Right?
Yeah.
True,
Yeah.
Right.
So, a lot of times we'll coordinate all of our work with Anthony's office, and they will give us their 3D model of the structure, and we can see if we have a column or a beam sticking out of a wall or a
Right.
roof line.
Right.
And we can address it, in that kind of 3D world before it goes out to, the builder or a shop drawing,
Right.
or whoever it might be.
The substantial benefit of that is we can have multiple different models. We can have a structural model, we can have a mechanical model, we can have a plumbing model, and then we have the architectural model. Now,
Right.
all of those parties can combine, and you can do something called clash detection,
Yeah.
which it's basically your model becomes a color, your other model's another color. When they collide, you see a completely different color, and that's the point where you're like, okay, I have a clash here.
Right.
Need to figure it out.
Right.
And that used to happen in the field when
So when they're running a HVAC main trunk line,
Yep.
and on the plan there's a cross,
Yep.
but there's no depth to it.
Right.
You can't come and look at like this. You're only looking down on it like this,
Yeah.
and you have this, but you don't know, is this at the same height,
Right.
or do you have 18 inches, or is it too low? Is it below the floor package? Right.
benefit it gives you is not only you know that beforehand, but you can modify how one of those two systems is working so that you may not need to spend the extra money on a beam penetration and reinforcement of that penetration, or putting another unit somewhere else in the house because you've now pigeonholed yourself and this is your area, you can't get past it.
Right.
Specifically helpful when cavities are
Right.
12 inch or less.
Yeah.
Sure. And then everything has to fit in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got
Sure.
your plumbing, you got your
Sure.
your recessed cans, you got your mechanical systems, if there's speakers in the ceiling.
And this might be something that then you come back and say, hey, what can we do? Can we
This
drop
isn't
the
gonna
floor?
work,
Right.
We have a
Right.
lot of those conversations.
Right.
How are we gonna address this?
Right.
From the homeowner's perspective, it's a great tool because not only can they see the two-dimensional, drawings that we present and the information that's extracted from that model, but we can also create, three-dimensional views.
Right.
We can create, renderings. We can create really great photorealistic
Rich. Yeah.
renderings.
Very rich.
And what we really love about it is during the construction process, a lot of architectural firms will use kind of SketchUp or other pieces of software to kind of go in that 3D direction, get them through that schematic design phase, right? So they can sell the pretty picture. But then when you go into a construction document, you have to head in a different direction
Right.
because most software packages aren't combining both.
Right.
If we live and stay in that one 3D world
Correct.
throughout the whole phase of our
Right.
project, at any point we can show the homeowner what a change may look like. So a client reviewing, an outdoor shower or a front door, a column arrangement, we can manipulate that, show them exactly what it's going to look like in 3D, present it as a rendering or an image, and give them several options.
Right.
So they can see what it's going to look
Right.
like.
Because there's nothing worse than after it's built and the homeowner walks in and says, I didn't think it was going to look like that.
Yeah.
Another
Oh,
fantastic point
God.
in Revit is if they decide that they want to change materials or they want to change
Yeah.
a simple shape, something that would take a lot more time in CAD,
Yeah.
you can switch on the fly.
Sure.
And you're not just, if you had, for instance, that shower, that shower curve. There's an insane curve with I forget what kind of steel,
It was
Corten
going to be a
steel.
Corten steel shower
So
that we were working on together.
If Ray was working in CAD, he would have had to 2D draw it.
Yep.
Do an elevation of the thing.
Right.
And maybe do, I don't even know if you could have done an
An
axon.
axometric,
No,
a curve
but-
like that.
Yeah.
Right, so now if they decide they're going to change it and now they want it in a completely different shape or maybe a subtly different shape, if he does that in Revit, it's done like that.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
The elevation's done, the plan view is done.
right.
Isometric is there too.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
CAD
And,
is
and now you can offer additional views or
Oh, so robust.
sections,
Sure, of
or
course.
It's really robust for the field.
Sure, sure,
So
sure.
everybody gets it.
Right,
And
and
you look
what-
at that one image and you're like, okay, I get it.
Right, and when we put, we're a Revit office also, and we put our LiDAR scanner out, it's grabbing everything in 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
And then we're able to manipulate it, and then, like, if I come over to you and you say, Frank, give it to me in CAD, then we need to export it and repackage it so I can get it to you flat. But when you need it, it comes to you in 3 dimensions.
Yeah, it's great.
So, depending on where and who the end user is, whether it's CAD or whether it's Revit, it either goes full 3D
Yeah.
or it goes into flat 2D. So I guess it just depends on
Sure, what
the
the
office and the practice and the need. Yeah. So,
So it's really a beneficial tool, not for the homeowner, but also for the entire design team, for the construction team, and even at the end user of the building itself. It happens a lot of times in commercial projects where they want to know what the rentable space might be or the volume of the space
Sure.
might be. It's all right there.
right.
It's much quicker to obtain that information in BIM, especially after changes are made too. Because you make that change, they ask for that usable space, you give it to them, you change a couple walls. Now you have to go through that whole process again. Whereas in BIM, it follows you wherever you're moving that wall. That area is changing with you. So
Yeah.
all the information.
They use a
incredible.
term called parametric. So when you move something, it changes something else. And that's really kind of the buzzword.
Right.
Parametric.
So you're saying if you grab a wall and you extend it,
Yes.
you're grabbing the whole model and extending it at the same time.
Yes.
Versus going back into CAD and having to do multiple touches.
Yes.
Because then it opens you up to an omission.
Yes.
Oh, I forgot to change that. Oh my God.
The
Right?
elevation's not the same.
The same,
The
right.
section could change.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into
Right,
it.
right.
So the more you can stay in that BIM world where
Sure.
you're moving things around, I think it's...
And you can stretch it and you have, I don't know, repetitive balusters on a deck or something. And you're done in 2 clicks and you're done. But if you had to do that same work in CAD, you'd be there for how long?
An array.
couple hours.
Could be, could be.
An array.
It
and
really
hopefully
depends.
The spacing's right.
Yeah.
Correct, correct.
That goes, touching back onto level of detail too, it's significantly more beneficial to have a higher level of detail project in
Yes.
BIM than I would
Correct.
say would be in CAD. You
Right.
can do it, absolutely. They
Yeah.
did it for years, but the amount of information that you can put into a model and then extract from that and develop your drawings, your interiors is far and away better, in my opinion.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely. 100%
I
on.
enjoy efficiencies and
Yeah.
Cool. So if we had to do takeaway from today, we have the architect, and we have the engineer, right? If you had to give 2 sentences,
We do all the fun stuff.
you do all the fun stuff.
I do some fun stuff.
I do some fun stuff too.
Yeah, the stuff you do, I can't pretend to do, and I'll say the same thing
And
about the
I could
RA
never,
license.
figure out the beam calculations, wind loading, all those types of things.
Well, that's the thing.
lot of
I'll
variables.
give you some grace there. I'll say you probably could over a period of time, but I'll never be an artist. So
Right, right, right.
Appreciate
But at the end of the day, we want the homeowner to be comfortable.
Yes.
We want them to have great value,
yeah,
right? For, this doesn't just happen, right? Just is a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
yeah,
So there's a lot of time and effort and collaboration and team building, and then all of this, and then they go into execution.
Yeah.
yep.
And that's a whole nother
Yep.
bucket for another conversation. But so you get to do all the fun stuff,
Yep.
and you get to make sure that the fun stuff stays together.
For my entire life.
For you're right,
Very least.
exactly. And at the end of the day, it's for our clients.
Yeah,
all
for the
this
client.
benefit the client.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Benefit the client.
I mean,
world. Yeah.
we're our office, at least Paul and I. The reason that we got into this business and did it on our own was we recognized a serious need, and that was
Yep.
to provide a substantial experience for everybody involved, and mainly the client, but it doesn't have to just stop with the client. We want the architect to want to work with us.
Oh, no
We
question.
want the contractors, because Paul and I both built houses. We know what it was like going through that day to day.
Yeah.
And we also know that our bosses at that point knew more than us, probably knew more than the engineer about the execution. Make them happy too. Appease them and still be within code.
Yep.
So that's
Sure. No, and you know, if that's your mission, I could tell you, you know, we tripped over you on a client in Hampton Bays, and I remember getting the septic plan in and interfacing with maybe Zach from your office, and everything was just tick, 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 tick. And I said, oh, these guys have a process.
That was,
And I said, oh yeah, we can work with these guys.
The best thing I think Paul and I ever did was anytime we did something, we wrote it down, we made a procedure for it,
Yep.
gave it to the next person.
Yep.
Because, you know, for them to come back to us and say, hey, how'd you do this, and do it a couple times over, it's, you know, certainly
Well,
happy to do it.
I was up 2 weekends ago writing instruction manuals for how do you get the LiDAR scanner to connect to the tablet,
Well, now you're
because I'm getting the phone call in the field. Frank, the is not doing what it's supposed to do. Don't break the machine, Joe. Well, this is how you do it, you know.
Well, now you don't have to write
right, because they need to know, okay, here's the button, right? And this is how we do it. This is the process. And that's the mark of a business owner. You know, that's the mark of, you know, so we're all business owners here.
We are, yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, you know, when you cut me, I'm an entrepreneur at heart.
Yeah.
And it's creating value that we exchange for, you know, with the intention that maybe we'll make a profit, hopefully. But there's enough value that we provide to our clients that the client says, yes, I'm going to hire this man. You know?
Yeah, and on that aspect of things, that's where we really pride ourselves as well, is the value that we add to our projects by pretty much, you know, living in that 3D world and being able to present the project or changes to the project to the client in a way that they can quickly and easily understand, but also out to the field to the builders.
Sure.
Right? So we've taken that technology to the next level.
Right.
We have a great process for creating not only the construction documents, but also the pretty pictures.
Sure.
And that's where we really kind of sing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's a lot of fun.
So small businesses, everyone's supporting their families,
Yeah.
providing value to our clients, driving and pushing the ball forward,
Yep.
and you know, creating the better mousetrap, which is the beautiful part of, you know, entrepreneurship and
Yep.
being business owners. And so you know, I know everyone's busy, and I know, you know, you said you've been bonkers with field visits and overstaffed and understaffed and work. Well, I'm sorry, meaning that the you know, the demand on you is being, and you have a big office. You know, you got a great shop.
22 people.
Yeah, you got a big shop. So you know, to be busy and to keep 22 people busy. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Hats off, brother.
Thankfully, they make it easy because
Yeah.
they do the very hard work.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a big part of what Paul and I take pride into is, you know, we have very good employees.
No, you got great guys. You got great guys. So thanks for coming on,
Thanks for
Anthony.
having us.
And I appreciate it. You know, you've been a real pleasure to work with. That's the straight
You as
truth
well.
of it.
Thank you, Ray. Good to see you again.
Thanks, Anthony.
So, from 3 business owners, 3 dads, creating value the best we can. We just want to wish you well, and this is probably be released sometime around Christmas. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you into 2024.
Merry Christmas.